Well, it's time for episode 252 of the 3 Point Podcast, presented by Memorial Healthcare and Skymint Cannabis. Memorial Healthcare's now Community Wellness Center. Guys, I don't know if you saw it. I posted it today on Twitter. They have now hit the 1,000 member milestone. So, I mean, they continue to grow. I think the mission was in the first year to at least be 1,200, and they're already at 1,000. It's a great testament to what they got going on there. The word is spreading. They got everything from the Sky Track to all kinds of world-class weight machines. They got That's part of your membership. You can take classes like Zumba and cycling and all this stuff. It's awesome. And like I've said many times before, my admission is paid for with just the steam room. I just love that. After a workout, sit in the steam for 10 minutes, man, it's just like you got a new life going.
If this 1,000 members, if let's say it was, a Peloton, a leaderboard where they're kind of tracking your workouts and how, much of an athlete you are, where do you think you rank on that?
Oh, probably in the 900 range, maybe. No, not to be honest with you. No, I'll take that back. I just happened to notice it when I was in there this morning doing my thing. There was quite a few people in there older than I was. And I'll tell you what they do. I go there really on a mission. I don't want to waste my time. I'm there to work out and get done and get on with my day. But there's people in there, and God bless them, they paid their membership, but they're in there, they're doing a pretty mellow little sitting on a cycle, visiting with their friends. It's kind of like the new coffee shop for some of these guys. Yeah, why not is right. I get a kick out of it because when you go every single day, and I go different times of the day, but I've kind of settled into just the morning. I'm seeing a lot of the same regulars. I'm starting to introduce myself to people that I don't know, and it's awesome. It's just a great atmosphere.
It is, and that's what I love about the gym. I mean, some people, would rather just work out at home, do, Peloton, like you said, Jared, or even just there's so much stuff on YouTube nowadays. You can just look up workouts on YouTube. I love the community part of the gym, even if you end up not talking to people, being there with. Watching other people work out, other people are holding you accountable. I just think the gym atmosphere is so cool.
Yeah. It really is. I'm glad I got hooked up with it, and I've become dedicated for sure. Well, another one of our great partners, Skymint Cannabis. Somebody is on January 31st. They're doing the draw. They're getting a year's worth of cannabis, man. Now that's not a bad setup. What'd you figure it out? It was, Jared, about $6,000 worth.
Yeah, I mean, what'd you say? $500 limit.
Every month.
That's a mind-boggling. That's enough to last you a lifetime, let alone a year. So
it depends. Now, some of our listeners, it may not, but for us, it would. Over 15 locations throughout the state. Check out their new Skymint Reserve. If you're over 21, just see what it's all about. It's skymint.com. There's a lot of these stores popping up everywhere, but Skymint, we hooked up with them and we're staying loyal to them because we think they're the best. And don't forget that Corona store, you can still sign up for 20% off Skymint products. Just use the coupon code 3.20. We also want to thank our local partners. They include AZEE Printing Solutions, Crow Real Estate and Auction, Rivals Taphouse and Grille, Capital Sports Fieldhouse, Nelson House Funeral Homes, and Success Group Mortgage and Servicing. Should be another good pod, as we're going to be checking in with Ovid-Elsie's outstanding young head coach, Josh Latz, as he gets prepared to take on the Langsburg Wolfpack, ranked number 2 in Division III. But we got just play a little catch up here, boys. What's going on with you guys?
I could bore you guys with what's going on with my, mundane everyday life, but I got to make an admission. I mean, ever since, January 31st, I've been in a little bit of a rut, man. That Michigan TCU game, I'd be lying if it didn't cross my mind once a day. I'm still so puzzled by it. I think the reason is I think it's the worst sports loss of my life. Maybe you guys can agree with that. It
Pretty
just
bad.
Was so embarrassing. And then the way what happened, the week following where TCU just got obliterated. I mean, I don't know if I'll ever live it down. And I think I finally realized it this weekend, watching these AFC championship games, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes. I mean, if you can't get excited for that, you don't have a pulse. And I was just like a zombie watching it. And I think that it was because of January 31st. I think something flipped in my mind.
December 31st. I'll correct you.
Yeah, December. Sorry, December 31st. Something flipped in my mind. And I've never been the same.
I think we might get into it a little bit later, but I think probably contributing to that too is how bad Michigan basketball has been this year. If they were like on a roll, maybe that'd help you move on a little bit from the football season. But I'm with you. I still, you still see stuff on Twitter about whether it's recruiting or Harbaugh interviewing with the Broncos or whatever, and it always brings it back to, man, if we could have just at least beat TCU and got to the title game, that would have just been so much cooler. But yeah, that was a tough one to get over. Maybe still getting over it.
It was, but how about you, Matt? I mean, I'm over it right now.
Yeah.
Are you over it? I feel
I mean,
sorry for Jared. He's not, but
I would say over it. Maybe again because Georgia was just so good. I still think Michigan would have matched up better with Georgia than
Right.
TCU did. But
For
whatever, it is what it is. But
you guys were quicker to turn the page to next year. Like, you guys, even, during that pod when we and our listeners are probably so sick of hearing about this, but I could talk about it. I could talk about it all for another hour. I mean, you guys immediately moved on to the 2023 season, how much we were returning, all these players coming back, how good they're going to be. It's just, that loss will never leave me, man. It never will. And I'm telling you, these losses happen in the moment. I mean, think about, the Eric Ebron, the pass interference. Oh, Lions, we'll be back in the playoffs next year. This game happens. Oh, we'll be back next year. Next thing you know, you're Ted's age, looking back on the Lions, franchise, like, man, we never made it to a Super Bowl. Yeah. And I'm feeling that TCU game will be that for our lifetime, Matt. I really do.
I will say this is an interesting catch up. You've got us on a roll here.
Yeah.
Take like Michigan fans. I know like with the current playoff format, teams like Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, Georgia, they've been making it every year. I was talking to some friends probably around that time a few weeks ago. Shouldn't take that for granted. Michigan making 2 straight playoffs. They might not make another playoff, who knows? They lost Ohio State 15 years in a row or whatever it was. So it's like, that's the one thing that I don't know if it's like I can't get over, or the one thing that still kind of stings is it's like, yeah, they have a lot coming back next year, but you never know. They could slip up against Michigan State next year. Mm-hmm. They could, Ohio State's always good. They could slip up against Ohio State, not make the playoff.
Injuries. McNamara could beat them in the Big Ten championship game.
Yeah, I mean, that could happen. So that's the one thing where it's like, man, they made the playoff 2 years in a row and couldn't get a win either year. That's what kind of stings.
Yeah. Well, we need to move on.
I'm sorry to kind of, hopefully it doesn't bring down the energy of the whole pod, but
no, I don't think it will.
It's been bringing my energy down for a month, man. So I just had to get it off my chest.
By the way, I just got to bring up in the catch up here a little bit, a shout out to a couple guys. I did the girls game, for 3 Point Podcast last Friday night, and had Craig Numerick join me. And, I know he wasn't really letting on to me, but I know he was nerved up, but I think he did a great job. I think it was fun to do it with him. And those kind of things are just neat, when you can involve somebody like Craig, who's, probably our number one fan.
Right.
Yeah. Loyal listener. And we always love getting his feedback on the podcast too. And he's been on the podcast before. Yeah. So definitely cool to have him on the call. Cause I know he's a loyal Corona Sports follower also. Mm-hmm. So that's cool to have him front and center on the mic. That's cool.
I thought he did a great job, Ted. And, to put you on the hot seat, I think it's time to, make this a reoccurring thing every year. I don't know if it's Corona and Owosso. I don't know if it's, another great matchup we have in this county, but should be once a year recurring segment.
Sounds like a plan.
As long as Craig doesn't start to big time you and start to be like, all right, my contract, you're gonna have to start paying me to do this now.
Well, you guys are gonna laugh at this too. I've talked about it before. Sean from Vernon. Mm-hmm. Ever heard that name? Okay, yeah. He's one of our bigger fans on Z92.5. He shows up at the gym, brought a Jets pizza for both Joe and I. He works at Jet, so brings us a pizza, man.
That's
can't
awesome.
beat that,
That's a heck of a deal.
That's my NIL deal.
It's like you broadcast a Pistons game, you have the catered lunch. We talk about the Michigan Big House. You go down to the cellar of that place and they have a breakfast and lunch for you. Once a year you get a loyal listener bringing you a Jets pizza. And it's just the little things in life, man.
That's absolutely right. Also, we talked about, or you just talked about maybe doing these special things, a little teaser for our listeners. Next year I am going to be doing a few things, and part of it is we've added a new Sports Posse member to Z92.5. Casey Smith joined us for the call on the boys game, did a great job, and we're looking to use him a lot more on the radio. And I'm going to pick some spots moving down the road, but we'll have more of an official announcement of that later on in the season. But it was a lot of fun working with Casey, your cousin there, Jared.
Yeah, I noticed that when the pod got posted. I didn't know that he was calling that game with you. I'm gonna have to go back and listen to it. What was it like managing a 3-man booth, man? I mean, that's a lot of work on a play-by-play guy's shoulders.
It really wasn't bad at all, you know. I mean, he didn't talk that much. He kept the stats. Joe did the commercials, and you know, we had a pretty good flow for the three of us. I thought it worked out good. I'm not saying that's what it's going to be in the future,
Right. Yeah,
but
no,
Right.
it
like I
was
said,
fine.
I haven't listened to it back, but I'm sure I mean, you guys always do a great job. And I know Casey, he's mentioned that he's, getting into this sort of thing now. I think he's going to do a
Yeah.
great job as well. So,
Well,
got big shoes to fill in the legend of the voice of Z925 The Castle.
The
all
sports
right.
guy.
Perfect
The
way
sports
to
guy.
end that one, Jared. I love it. Thank you very much. We will talk about some college basketball. We'll talk some NFL football, whatever we want to talk about in the sports world. We'll have that coming up next. And then after that, Coach Josh Latz on the Prep Spotlight. That
Well, you
good?
guys teased it at the start. I mean, what a dismal day it was for Michigan and Michigan State basketball. Michigan State loses to Purdue. That was expected. Michigan just getting their doors blown off by Penn State. I don't want to say I'm hitting the panic button, and to be honest, I'm hitting the panic button on
Yeah.
Juwan. I
Mhm.
said it right off the rip. Whatever it was, year one, I was very worried about this. He has the big name, but my thing that is really concerning with me is not so much this team's play. Everyone seems to complain about this team's defense. I mean, they don't have the players. I mean, you look at
Yeah.
Juwan. What did I think Juwan would be great at when he first was hired at Michigan? Wasn't necessarily think he was going to be some superstar X's and O's coach. But
Recruiting.
what I did think he was going to dominate the recruiting, and he hasn't done that. I mean, his two best recruits are his sons. If you get rid of his sons, I mean, this recruiting class is even worse. Guys are transferring out, and I know it's a weird world now with the transfer portal and NIL. Jim Harbaugh adapted. Juwan Howard seemingly hasn't. He kind of rode the coattails of Beeline's recruits, those first couple of years, and we know how loaded those teams were. And it just seems like this slow decline has started in this program, and I don't know what's going to turn it around. He hasn't been getting any big name recruits. I mean, think about, Bronny James. I mean, Juwan's like LeBron's best friend, and he's nowhere, and Michigan's nowhere to be seen with this recruiting.
Yeah.
It's concerning. The recruiting is really what concerns me. Not so much what's going on the floor. It's the fact that we are not a top 5 recruiting school with Juwan, who you would think would be connecting with these youngsters better than anyone. It's just not happening.
Yeah, I mean he's gotten some pretty good recruits like Kobe Buffkin. He was a pretty big recruit in Michigan, and Doug McDaniel, the pretty good recruit. He's not like getting number
Right.
1 classes, but we did kind of think that he'd be like cleaning up, especially like with the transfer portal. Guys that want to just come somewhere for 1 year and then have a chance to go to the league. It was like, man, he should be able to land a few guys in the portal who want to come to Michigan for 1 year and then go try and go to the NBA. So that's been a little bit of a head scratcher. And that's kind of the biggest thing to me with Juwan. I think he's a fine coach. Is he going to end up being, as good as John Beilein or like the legendary, Tom Izzo at Michigan State? Is he going to be on that level? I guess, that remains to be seen. But I think he's got to figure a lot out, maybe with coaching, but also with recruiting. Like you said, Jared, college basketball nowadays, it's not the same. I mean, Michigan State, I think Tom Izzo actually has to figure some stuff out too with recruiting. He doesn't use the transfer portal very much. And I think that's affecting him a little bit, with depth and stuff like that when you have injuries. So I think Juwan, when he came in, it seems like he was just going after those just big names. Let's just try and get a few 5 stars, some of the big names, and we'll figure it out. And it doesn't work like that. You need some glue guys. That's what Beilein always had. Beilein always had like 2, 3 kind of stars, and then 3 or 4 glue guys that just did the dirty work. And that's why Juwan had so much success when he came in, because he had those players, Isaiah Livers and Shondae Brown and, guys like that, Charles Matthews. So I think, to me, from my seat, I guess, I think that's what he has to work on, and is his roster construction, because I think he's a fine coach. He learned under Eric Spoelstra, and he obviously knows the game of basketball very well. I think he just needs players that fit what he wants to do. Because, right, if you just roll Jet Howard out there and he's just jacking up threes, okay. You got a 7-footer who was a preseason All-American, and they can't figure out how to get Dickinson the ball sometimes. So that's what I think. To me, I don't think they should panic on him, but
not yet.
Not yet. Yeah.
But next year, if it goes like this, then they got some serious things to think about. I do think it may be just a 1-year thing. I don't know. I mean, I've talked about karma before, and that whole debacle at Wisconsin last year, and
Yeah.
then now see how they're playing this year. And then he's had a couple of other outbursts that have come close to, getting a little bit out of control. And it starts to make me wonder, how is his demeanor at practice? How is it really when you're in the depth of coaching these kids? I guess it will remain to be seen, but they're definitely if anything, are they even on the bubble? I mean, they got to really go on a streak.
They haven't won. They don't have a single quadrant one win,
right?
Which is all that you hear Joe Lenardi talk about.
Right.
Well, they don't have a single one, man. They're not making it this year.
I don't think so.
I don't think it's now stepping out of line to say that. There's no miracle run coming with this team. There's no Big Ten tournament run. There's no Sweet 16 appearance. This team sucks. I'd say it sucks.
Where are you guys? That's what I was gonna say. They need a hope for a Big Ten tourney run.
Yeah,
that's like their hope right there.
Are you guys on the same level as me with Juwan, where it's like I'm not sure he's the guy for the job. I really don't.
No, I'm not yet. Mostly because, like I've said before, whether it's with Harbaugh or other coaches or whatever, like who are you going to bring in that's just going to be better? Yeah, they might find someone, and it might be okay. Right now, in the next, I'm saying 3-4 year window type of thing, I think it's his job. If this continues for 2, 3, 4 more seasons where there's no improvement, then you really have to wonder. But I just don't like teams moving on from coaches after like a couple seasons. 2 bad seasons and you're out. It's like, no, come on. Sometimes you just get recruiting. You just never know. Yeah. I mean, he had a transfer point guard come in and blew his knee out. That was supposed to be a starting point guard. So,
Yeah, I'm probably being a little too. I'm probably jumping the gun a little bit, especially. I mean, we were feeling negative about last year's team, and they ended up, making the Sweet 16 great. Gave us a couple great wins in the tournament. So, they still could do that this year. I don't see it happening with this team. I didn't see it happening with last year's team either. So, I've been wrong before. Just something after that Greg Gard whole interaction, something changed in my brain about, and I shouldn't have. I don't know why. I mean, seeing a head coach do that, it was just so puzzling, and it just was not a good look for Michigan. I mean, people come after Michigan for everything, man. The last thing we need is more, bulletin board material, as they say.
Yeah. Well, on the other side of the coin, Michigan State too. I mean, they went down to West Lafayette. Purdue looks real. Now, is it just smoke and mirrors? I mean, they do have the big kid in the middle that I don't know. I see a lot of people dogging on him, and he's pretty damn good, and he's 7'4" for crying out loud. So it's tough to defend. Is this the year they make it to the Final Four, or you think we're going to see the same old Purdue faltering in the tournament?
I was going to say they got to make it to the second weekend first. So if you're asking me, I'm saying no. Don't trust Purdue. They always come up short. That's what Painter does as a head coach. But they do have, and Edey, he's probably going to win the National Player of the Year. I mean, he's just dominating. So when you've got that guy in the middle, and they've got some good shooters in the tournament, you've got a chance. So I do think it's funny. I just want to circle back real quick. Juwan, what happened at Wisconsin was bad. He crossed the line. He admitted it. He got suspended, all that kind of stuff. He got physical. It is funny for me to hear even you guys or other people act so concerned about Juwan's demeanor when you see coaches like Fran McCaffrey at Iowa go ballistic every night. Brad Underwood at Illinois goes ballistic every night. And you know who I'm going to bring up? Your boy, Tom Izzo, goes ballistic every night. And I've had friends, a couple who were managers for Michigan State's basketball team while they were at Michigan State. And they've told me what you see during games doesn't even scratch the surface with how he is during practice. Mm-hmm. So yes, Juwan crossed the line and got physical with another coach, but it's just funny for me to hear people say like, Juwan, man, he just loses control. But when you see McCaffrey, Izzo, Underwood do the same thing, it's just like, they're just tough-minded coaches.
I'll be honest, it has to do with winning. If they're winning every game right now, I would say how much I love it. I mean, you lose those games, and same thing with Harbaugh. All the weirdness of Harbaugh gets, put on the forefront when they're losing games and, the COVID season. But then when they're winning, it's like, it's so awesome how weird he is. Right, it's both. And I'll be first to admit it. That's exactly why I'm saying that. It's because they're not looking good. And I'll deal with all the other stuff off the court like we do with Harbaugh. If you're winning ball games, and it just hasn't been lately. As for Izzo, and this is a big theme of the weekend, I noticed. First thing he complained about after the game, and I love Izzo.
3 seconds.
I love everything about him, but first thing he complains about, man, is the ref. The whole 3 seconds thing, and this was the theme all weekend long. In the NFL, it seems like it's the theme every weekend almost. And I'm tired of it. Here's the thing, NFL especially, the best referees are on those 2 games. There's only 2 games this weekend. The very best referees in the NFL are on that game, and there's mistakes happening. So what does that tell you? Is that it's just the way of football. It's the way of the position of being a referee. It's so subjective. It's going to be wrong. And in this social media world where there's a million replays every angle, it's impossible to expect to hold them to the same standards as all millions of people watching at home would have. The Bengals acted like the whole reason they lost was because of the referees.
Well, the only argument I would have, Jared, is okay, referees are human. If they're going to miss calls, I understand that. But it seems to be this year more prevalent than ever that even after replay, they're missing these calls. And that's unacceptable. Why have replays if you can't get it right?
Right. Yeah. And like Jeff Van Gundy was on the call for the Lakers Celtics game. And that was another one where there was a blatant missed call at the end of the game. And he made that point. He was like, if you have replays, this play decided the game, essentially. How do you not have a replay to see if that was actually a foul?
Right.
You know, if you're going to have replay, get it right. And, you know, that referees, I've complained about referees before. I'm not going to act like I've never complained about referees. Mistakes are going to happen. I mean, that's just part of the game, where there's balls and strikes in, you know, Major League Baseball or whatever. Some calls are going to get missed. If you wanted to call holding in football, you could probably call holding on every single play.
You could.
You know what I mean? Like, so when I see people complain about that, look at this hold, it's like, all right, are you going to literally call every single hold on every single play? You know, you're not going to do that. The one thing I don't like is when people say, like, you should call the games differently at the end of the game versus at the beginning of the game or in the playoffs. That's a playoff foul versus a regular season foul. It's like, no, a foul is a foul. You know, like whether it's at the end of the game or beginning of the game, like you don't swallow your whistle at the end of the game. So like with the Mahomes play, with the you know, when he was running out of bounds, and it was a penalty.
Absolutely.
I mean, like the people saying like that affected the game 15 yards, you know, it's like, well, it was a penalty. So yes, he should have called it.
Yeah. You know, I go back and forth on it. I mean, you know, you bring LeBron into it, it's going to pull at my heartstrings. So that was a terrible call, obviously. I mean, you don't need us to tell you that. It's just, I don't know if it's the social media. I don't know if it's just as soon as a ref makes a bad call, now all of a sudden it's pictures all over the internet, and, you know, there's a million comments, and, you know, there's the one I just saw was some ref from the Kansas City game, Photoshop of Patrick Mahomes holding a ref jersey and the ref holding Patrick Mahomes jersey. Maybe it's just that. Maybe I'm just being a baby about it. It is their job. They get paid handsomely to do it. And it is egregious when you see a call like what happened in that LeBron game. But it just, I don't know. It's just, I'm sick of it always being on Monday morning, you know, when you turn on your podcast or you turn on ESPN, you know, and you're watching whatever SportsCenter, it's always the leading topic, man, is something about the refs. And
does that tell you though that maybe there is something going on that there?
Well, you can't solve it. That's what I'm saying. It's an unsolvable issue.
Right.
I don't know about that. I mean, maybe work harder to get it right. It's a profession. They're getting paid, like you said, handsomely. I don't know. It makes you wonder sometimes, you know, in the back of their minds, is there some kind of, you know, I don't want to say conspiracy, but, you know, a referee's human too. And they're at Kansas City and the crowd they're just going crazy. There's got to be a little mentality there that there's that split second where they have to make that call and they go with the home team. I don't know.
Right. Or, I mean, even just as simple as, what if there's a ref out there that doesn't really like Joe Burrow, you know, or something like that. So he's okay with Frank Clark shoving Joe Burrow to the ground and not calling that roughing the passer. You know, like you said, they're human. They're, you know, some bias is going to come into play, whether they want to admit it or not. Maybe they need to make these refs full-time. NFL referees they're part-time employees. Pay them full time. Like, what are you doing?
Confusing.
Pay them full time. And during the off season, you know, they can do clinics and they can do a bunch of other stuff during the off season. Like, what are you doing? The one thing I'll say, see what you did, Jared? You're complaining about it, and we're going to talk about referees.
Yeah, I mean, we got to. I mean, I was trying. Yeah, I wasn't trying to. But now that I'm realizing it, I'm trying to have like the opposite debate, and we're just we're delving right into the same debate, which I'm here for. I'll defend these referees. With everything I got, it's just
the one thing I'll say that bothers me with the referees is the lack of accountability. I assume within whatever their community, the referees, they get held accountable. I'm sure they have like reports of like, you missed this many calls, you missed, you know, whatever. I wish they would have to do press conferences right after games. coaches have to, players have to. Why did you throw that interception? Why did you not call a timeout at the end of the game? Why did you make this substitution? Whatever.
Why did you throw that flag?
Why did you throw that flag? Why did you not call that foul against LeBron when he was driving to the hoop? I didn't see it. Like they should definitely be held accountable the same way that the players are and the coaches. Maybe that would make them care more. I think they care, but maybe
that's like, I guess how a debate is like. I mean, you think about that ref. Maybe you guys know what his name was. I've seen his picture all over Twitter the last 2 days from the Lakers game. You don't think that he's going home that night and like doesn't sleep and he's just, he's probably kicking himself more than anyone else is. He's probably more mad that he missed that call than anyone. And now it's like families all over social media. It's just, I don't think they need to, be, put in press conferences. I do agree. It's sometimes weird how they'll, I did love how the NBA came out and said, we missed that call, is wrong. I mean, they tweeted it. I don't know. It means nothing really, but I guess at least it's some sort of admission that it was wrong.
Well, you think about, to your point, think about Jim Joyce, the umpire who blew the call in Armando Galarraga's perfect game.
28 out, perfect game.
He's never been the same. I mean, they did that 30 for 30 on him and all that. And he talked about how like you said, Jared, it affected him. I mean, he came out the next game, when they Armando and him kind of like presented the game ball and he was breaking down crying.
Yeah.
Because he knew the call that he blew. So these guys, they take it seriously. I don't know. Sometimes it just bothers me where it's almost like they can blow a call and it's like.
And you know what Jim Joyce did was right after he blew that call, he hopped on 97.1 Ticket, talked about it.
Yeah.
Did he?
Yeah. So, I mean, maybe that's why he's had kind of this whole resurrection where people nobody's even mad at him really anymore. They're they kind of forgave him right as it happened.
How can you not respect a guy that comes out and says, hey man, I blew it. I'm human. I blew it. That's what more people should do in life. Right. When you make a mistake, instead of trying to cover it up, right. it goes a long ways. I agree with you too, Jared. I mean, they're human. I don't have a real problem with refs. I'm still having a hard time figuring out how this instant replay, I call it instant replay is an old man comment, but replay, how they can't get this stuff figured out. I mean, it almost is like it's a mindset now with the refs on the field. They know replay is coming, so they have to analyze the best way to make.
You want it both ways. You want them to be quick in these replays, but you want them to get it right. I mean, which one is it? It's
get it right. They have taken forever and haven't gotten it right.
Every time they go to replay, you are bitching in your head that they're going to replay. We all are. We hate it.
Yeah, but there's the times like at the end of a college basketball game where it just slows down. They're looking at every out of bounds, and it's like, oh God, come on. Yeah. But it's good that they get the call right. But then there's the times, not to bring this game back up, but think about Roman Wilson's touchdown.
Right.
Should have been a touchdown against TCU. It was called a touchdown. They went to replay and somehow overturned it. And
I know
everyone at home is like, what are you guys looking at? How are you overturning this thing? So that's, I mean, maybe, I don't know if that's the point you're trying to make, Ted. That's where replay is frustrating, where it's like, it just seems so inconsistent.
It's like,
still.
Here's what I find people always complaining about, Matt, is it's like people will complain like, oh, the point of replay is not to analyze, a catch down to every little last frame. But what, you just supposed to turn it off, like not watch this replay? I don't understand. Right. There's no way to fix that. And so I don't, there's no perfect system. I guess I'm just saying there's no perfect system. There's no great solution. So just back off of these guys is what I'm saying.
Fair enough. And I guess maybe the one thing that I might have brought it up before, when they do have the replay, they slow it down to such a super slow motion that, it's almost like stop action. I mean, if they just ran the video at normal speed or even half speed and then call it good, because they slow it down so much. That's what takes all the time. And they're looking at all the different angles. I don't know what the answer is, but I do know this. We got one more football game in front of us other than the flag football fiasco coming up. But Super Bowl, Eagles and Chiefs. I know your buddy Josh, he's pretty happy about that. But early line, what are we looking at, Eagles and Chiefs?
Here's why what I love about what I saw this playoffs. The AFC is absolutely loaded. Mm-hmm. And the NFC, which the Lions are in and are maybe going to try to make a push for next year, it's deplete of talent. I mean, the 49ers, Shanahan, give him credit. I mean, the team's loaded, but they didn't have a quarterback. No. And I mean, it's unfortunate that Purdy went down right as that game got started. Who knows what happens? But it felt like we were watching two different styles of football. All the AFC playoff games we watched, and all the NFC playoff games we watched. A lot more entertaining on the AFC side, and I'm just thankful not to be a fan on that side with those star quarterbacks over there. We're lucky.
That's what I was going to say. It's the quarterbacks in the AFC. I mean, in the NFC, you've got, they're legends, but you've got old dudes like Rodgers and Brady trying to win games. You've got the 49ers trotting out their fourth-string quarterback, and then even Jalen Hurts is kind of banged up. He's playing well, obviously, but he's kind of banged up. So it's the quarterbacks. But the Eagles are really good. I mean, can't take it. They played the Giants and then the 49ers with no quarterback, but they smashed both of those teams. So, I don't think the Chiefs are just to give it to them right now because they got Mahomes and Travis Kelce and all those guys, but I think it's going to be a good game, maybe like contrasting styles because the Eagles run a lot, and obviously the Chiefs have Patrick Mahomes doing all his stuff. So I think it'll be a good game. Hopefully everyone gets healthy, hopefully Hurts can get, healthy or whatever. And Mahomes, same thing, can rest an ankle or whatever.
Well, the good news is, like Jared was starting to talk about in the NFC. I mean, look at the Lions. I mean, Lions got to be. I mean, they're going to be a high favorite, aren't they? Not to win the Super Bowl, but they got to be right up there in the top 5 in the NFC, I would think.
I would say top 5 probably.
I think I saw
at least top 7, whatever the playoff number is. But
I think I saw right now they have the 10th best odds to win the Super Bowl for next season already.
That's amazing.
Isn't it funny how we talk about that? And the first thought that comes to my mind every single time is it's not going to happen. Like they're going to blow it next year. Like I still haven't totally shaken out of that mindset as a Lions fan.
Yeah,
it's the draft, and I saw the NFL is raising the salary cap, so the Lions have money to spend. They have a ton of draft picks. They really are in a great position.
And we don't want to get too giddy, but let's all three of us face it. The culture has changed. Players want to stay in Detroit, and players want to come to Detroit. When did we ever think we would hear that?
Right. Yeah, like Jamal Williams said he wants to re-sign.
Alex Anzalone, less money.
Yep, Anzalone, your favorite linebacker, said that he would take less money to come back. Who else did I see it? Someone else said they would take less money to come back. I mean, Ben Johnson probably could have had any head coaching job that he wanted, and he said, "Nah, I'm going to stay in Detroit." So,
yep.
Isn't that that's one thing I do? The NFL, it's king. We all know that. The location doesn't matter where you're at. Buffalo, Detroit, it really doesn't. Who's going to pay me? And who's got a good team? That's all that these players care about. And I love it. I just wish I don't know how the NBA hasn't quite been able to totally model itself out of that. Somebody smarter than me could probably explain that. But it is one positive of living in Detroit and being a fan of the Lion. That doesn't matter where we're at. We're going to be able to get whoever we want.
Amen. Looking forward to it.
Well, Ted, I wanted to ask you real quick. So a little history lesson. Let's utilize our resource. Our elder statesman here. So I was looking up some some Super Bowl stats earlier today, and I was looking at Joe Montana's. Right. And his first Super Bowl that he won was Super Bowl 26, 1982 at the Silverdome.
Yep.
The first Super Bowl in a cold weather city was at the Silverdome. What was that a huge deal? 1982 Super Bowl at the Silverdome. Do you remember? Like, was that a big deal, or was it just kind of like, oh, cool?
It was a big deal. It was, I know a lot of the talk leading up to the game was what were they going to do for all the out of town people that wanted to come into town? What would you do? And I can't remember specifically. I know they set up like a winter carnival type of atmosphere, for the Super Bowl, but. I remember the one at Ford Field more than the one at the Silverdome, actually.
The one Steelers.
Yeah.
Isn't it funny how like you go to a place like Scottsdale or whatever, Glendale, like where it's at this year. And it's like you can totally see how they would host a Super Bowl. You go there, it's like they got the airport right there, huge airport. They got housing everywhere. But then you go somewhere like Detroit, and you're like, the same problem that existed back in the Silverdome still probably exists today at Ford Field.
Yeah, speaking of that, I saw someone tweeted out something today about Rob Gronkowski. I guess the last couple of years has been having like a beach party Super Bowl weekend. Right. So he's having it. He hosts it, and like the one this year, Lil Jon is going, and like Diplo is going. So it's he's got some concerts, and then he's going to be there. And it just made me think, like, this is totally like a Vegas, LA, Scottsdale, Arizona thing. Like if the Super Bowl was in Detroit, would Gronk be having a beach party in downtown Detroit in February? You know, like that.
No,
kind of changes the feel a little bit.
Hey, we love our state, we love our town, but I'll be the first to say it. The Super Bowl should never be in a cold climate ever.
Right.
I don't care if it's a brand new stadium, dome, should never. Only be in the western and the southern locations.
I tend to agree with that too. By the way,
I gotta say one more thing about Scottsdale, and that what's gonna be crazy about that weekend. It's the same weekend as the UWM championship, which
really?
I just cannot imagine. I was there for that tournament last year. You guys remember? There was so many people. The drinks in Scottsdale were like $30 a pop. I seriously think I spent like $300 in one night. So it's like I just can't imagine what sort of hellscape that's going to be this weekend.
Well,
that tournament, which has like a million people, that it generates, plus a Super Bowl. I mean, it's a mega Super Bowl.
You have a free place to stay there, right? So
my brother's going to be living it up. I'm actually probably going there, in a couple weeks. But it just the schedules didn't line up for me to be there for that Super weekend. I don't know if I would want to be. That's like a weekend in Vegas, man.
Well, put it on your calendars, boys. We've talked about it before. I've already in my mind thinking next year, Las Vegas, Super Bowl. I told you I would go, and I'm trying to figure out how could that work out, without having to pay the astronomical price for room,
That reminds me. Remember earlier this year, the Lions won like one game, and you were like basically crowning them Super Bowl champions, and we like laughed in your face. That's what that reminded me of.
Okay, I don't remember that, but okay, fair enough.
It was something egregious like this. Maybe our listeners could help us.
Wait, is this out too far, Jared? I mean, am I off the wall?
Let's just win a play. I just want the goal for me next year. Let's put it on the table. It's just to win a playoff game.
But if you win one playoff game, then you're starting to smell it, aren't you?
Right. Yeah, it's kind of like I said earlier with Michigan football. It's like I would have just wanted to beat TCU, but once you get to the title game, it's like no, now I want to win.
No, but
title.
it's about taking another step. That we would have been fine with them just beating TCU because you're taking another step as a program.
True.
If the Lions win one playoff game, if the year after that they don't, then it's negative. But let's say they win one playoff game, then two, then three. I mean.
It doesn't always.
You got
true, that's true.
5 great years,
but it doesn't always work that way, man. If you get in the playoffs, you make your run at it. You got to go for it, right?
Got to go for it.
And I've seen. Look, they lost to the Eagles by 3. Okay, week 1. I mean, and then we saw how hot they were at the end of the year.
Right.
You're telling me if they wouldn't have made the playoffs, they had a very good chance to win a first round game, and who knows after that.
They beat the Giants, who were in the playoffs.
Right.
They beat the Packers, who were in the playoffs. So I mean,
hey, you don't got to tell me we all drank the Kool-Aid.
That's right.
We just know what the Lions are as a franchise until they prove us wrong.
Yep, you are right on that as well. All right, we got the Prep Spotlight coming up next, right after this. Well, it's now time for the Prep Spotlight, presented by Capital Sports Fieldhouse, and got another great high school coach to chat with here tonight. Ovid-Elsie head coach Josh Latz, now in his 12th season. Got a big game coming up tomorrow. We're recording this on Monday night, but a big Tuesday game against number 2 Langsburg. So first of all, Josh, you're having a great season this year yourself at 11-1, taking on unbeaten Langsburg. You've put up a heck of a lot of wins in your 12-year career. How's this looking forward to that game tomorrow night? How's that one stacking up for you? Are you getting the jitters and all that stuff that you would naturally expect?
Oh yeah. The jitters come, doesn't matter who the opponent is, but definitely for this one coming up, Langsburg is outstanding. They have an outstanding program, outstanding coaches. And, it's been that way for 30 years since Coach Mitchell took over. And, we're looking forward to seeing where we kind of stack up against them. We know they're very good and we have them in our district. So tomorrow hopefully is, one of those measuring stick games. We're a little bit kind of on the short end here because we weren't able to practice yesterday with the weather, and then we had a snow day today and they wouldn't let us come into practice today. So we're kind of rolling a little bit blind, just watching film and kind of going with a little bit of a walkthrough tomorrow. So we don't really know what to expect because of that. We just know they're going to be very good, and we're going to have to play our best game to have a chance.
What are the like mind games with a game like this where you said like you're going to be playing them in districts? Is your game plan like really dumbed down, or are you 100% like let's go win this game and send a message ahead of districts?
Yeah, it's a great question. You know, we just hope to play our best in every game. I don't think the mentality will change. Maybe more for us coaches, not as showing as much, maybe, but
Right.
not not telling the kids. Obviously, we're trying to go out and show everybody that we can compete with a team of that caliber. But yeah, you're right. It is kind of a little bit of a chess match. Do you want to throw everything? Let's say the game's close at the end. Do you throw all your stuff to try to get the win, or do you kind of
Right.
So it's kind of a fine line. But like I said, because of the way the week's been with the weather and not being able to get in the gym the last 2 days, we're kind of it's more of a play and see where we're at, more than anything. We got a guy out, one of our starters out hurt still, dealing with a concussion, and they've got a guy out or has been out. So I don't think it's 100% versus 100% anyways.
Yeah.
So it's really just go out and see where we're at and try to use it as a stick to know where we got to get to in the next month.
Yeah, that's something you don't think about sometimes with high school sports when it comes to snow days. I mean, you can't go into the gym if there's a snow day. You can't go to practice or whatever for if you're out for a few days. That kind of affects your rhythm, I guess. It's just something you don't think about sometimes. So you played at Ovid-Elsie in the early 2000s, back in, I guess, my era. You graduated a year before me, and we were kind of talking before we started recording. At the time anyway, we were playing really well, and maybe Ovid-Elsie, we kind of had your guys' number there for a little bit. You've been at OE now for 12 years, and you've turned that program around. You guys are having a lot of success. Same thing happening with your guys' football program. What has it taken overall for Ovid-Elsie athletics to kind of turn things around? Is it you guys just have a bunch of good talent? You've got the community buying in, good coaching like yourself. What has it taken to kind of turn your guys' programs around?
I think it's a combination of all those things. When we took over, the basketball program had won 20 games in the last 4 years when I took over, 12 years ago. And really, when we took over, there wasn't a lot established with our youth. And we really focused on training our coaches and, at the youth level, and then getting some more interest with our young kids, and kind of trying to find as many opportunities as we could to make them compete. And we got into the Red Cedar League kind of when I took over there. And actually the first classes that we got in that were the classes that started to come through and have the win the district championships, and we start to win some league championships. So, I think it's been a combination of all that, and the community's really bought in too with that, and the fact that we just have so much support from our parents and, from other community members with helping out with that, with our young kids, coming to games and supporting us, having things, youth nights and things like that in the gym, just trying to make it exciting for them. And winning, when you can build a winning culture, it's just fighting for it every day and making sure our kids understand the standard. You guys know that you played for Coach Fattel, and it's no different. It's not me. It's not me as a coach. It is totally the success of the kids and the younger coaches putting in that time and building them. So when they get up to the high school level, it's just a continuation of that culture. And luckily we've had some really dedicated parents and really dedicated kids to get us to that point. And like I said, now it's just something you fight for every day. But once it's built, it's kind of, the kids understand the standard and they understand what it takes to succeed. They see what it takes to succeed because they see the guys in the high school having success and what it takes to win. And it's just kind of that cyclical thing that just continues. We hope to continue it for a long time, as long as we can, at least.
Well, you bring up a good point, and we've talked about it before with different schools in our area. We watch from afar, for them to turn around a program. You laid it out perfectly, getting with the youngsters at a young age, getting coaches, trying to teach them what you want them to teach them, especially fundamentals, how to behave. So when they get to the varsity level, you don't have to redo that. Now, you may have shortchanged yourself because it's very important what you do with the kids. And every time I do a game over at Ovid-Elsie, I always started off with, I'm at the house that Forback built. You know,
Mhm.
Bob Forback kind of laid down the groundwork way back when, and there's been some other good coaches that have come through the program. Tell us a little bit about maybe some of the mentors that you learned a lot from.
Yeah, and Coach Forback's number one for me. I was in his wife's class back in first grade. She was a great teacher, and my love for basketball kind of began at that time. And I was fortunate enough to be one of his managers as a fourth, fifth, sixth grader, somewhere in there. And
What
we
a
had
great
some
job.
teams that didn't
Yeah.
win a lot of games, but it was the two teams that won back-to-back district championships. So they didn't, and it was a kind of a fluke thing. Both of them were fluke things. They were 4-16 and were able to win the districts. So that fire and that love of the game kind of started at that time. I would run the clock and put the hoops down, and shoot around while practice was going on, and just being around all those guys and wanting to be like them, and then on down the line, Coach Nutter, Jack Nutter, was my coach in high school. Great guy, one of the most stand-up guys you'll ever meet. So he had a big impact on me. My uncle Dirk Besko was a great player at Ovid-Elsie back in the late 70s.
Mm-hmm.
He was on the team that went undefeated. It was like 23-0, and then lost in the regional finals to Okamis. And he was a coach over in St. John's for over 20 years. So, there's another guy I kind of lean on a lot and did a lot early in my career with how to handle certain situations. I worked a lot of his camps when I was in college. So I got to learn, through him and Keith Haskey over in St. John's. He's had a lot of impact on me as well. Doug Ingles in St. Ignace, I've talked to him quite a bit. He's had numerous all-state kids, missed basketball, won state championships with the girls team. So I've been lucky enough to have a lot of those guys around me. And now as I get older, it's kind of funny, as I'm starting to be one of the elder statesmen kind of per se. I got these young coaches coming to me. It's like, man, I guess I am getting old because, but it's just, it's a fraternity, and I'm lucky to have guys like that. I admire everything Coach Patel did over in Corunna, Coach Mitchell in Langsburg. I mean, some of those guys that have been around just that have done great things. Luke Pohl, the late Jason George, I talked to him quite a bit when he was in Fowler and in Portland. And, we're lucky to have guys that will reach out to me and help me, and especially when things are tough, because, times are tough quite a bit as a coach, whether you're winning or losing or dealing with parents or dealing with this or that. So it's great to have those guys to, kind of lean back on.
Yeah.
It's funny to hear you say that you're kind of, a mentor now. Cause that's, at least when I was going through school, 6 years ago, Ovid-Elsie, since you've been there 12 years, you could pencil you guys in for, 15 wins every year. And so I would think of you the same way as what you maybe thought of, Coach Mitchell is what I look at Ovid-Elsie and your guys' program. But maybe your biggest win ever, you've won league titles, districts, obviously, was breaking the famous, at least in Corunna land, the famous, win streak of, whatever it was, 35 plus years it went on. One, was that something you always harped to your team before playing Corunna up until you beat the streak? And what was it like when you guys finally did snap it?
Well, truth be told, we only played them one time before that game when I was coaching.
Yeah.
So, all that talk that was going on that year, we were getting ready to play them. We had only played them once before. And actually in that game, we had a little bit better record. That was against Kyle's team with your brother on it. And so that was really the only other time where we had played Corunna. So we were getting ready to play them, and it's like all the hoopla was going on with this, the streak or whatever you want to call it. And it's like, wait a second, you guys, number one, weren't even alive and haven't been alive or around since any of this started. So you guys should have no understanding or no worry at all. All the pressure, if anything, it's on me. So don't worry about it. Just go out and play. And, we were lucky enough that year to have just some outstanding athletes and some great leadership, really, with a lot of those guys. And, Corunna, like I said, always just had a great program, still has a great program. So we felt fortunate to have him in our gym that night, and, played pretty well and kind of got the monkey off the back, I guess. Took the elephant out of the room. And then, but yeah, that for a long time, that was something that, especially you guys over in Corunna, you guys had on us for sure.
Oh, we knew it. I wasn't going to say it when I mentioned my question before. We knew that streak was going on. But I remember hearing when it broke, and I was like, oh, you don't want to be the class at Corunna that let that streak be broken. But it was going to happen eventually, of course.
Sure.
But you've been mentioning Corona, Lanesburg, yourselves obviously, and some other local, kind of more in like Shiawassee County, mid-Michigan, kind of like that greater area, I guess. How cool is it, for you? You grew up there. You just listed all these coaches, and even a player in my grade, Kyle Clough, who you've brought up a couple times. He's up at Rockford now. He's been on the podcast a couple times, doing well as a coach.
Mm-hmm.
How cool is it for you to see programs in the area doing well? A friend like Kyle and other mentors and stuff like that. Just the quality of basketball in mid-Michigan that sometimes, gets swept under the rug a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it just makes me feel proud and
Yeah.
gives me a lot of pride, because you're like you said, it is the West Side. Yeah, they've got good basketball. There's some good basketball down by Detroit, and there's good basketball in Northern Michigan. But there's a lot of really good basketball right here, and especially at the Division III now, level, Division II, III level. We don't have a bunch of big schools, and I think maybe that's why that we don't get the recognition in the area, because we just don't have the big cities and the schools that everybody talks about. But there's extremely good basketball and extremely good coaches, and if you don't come ready to play, or you're not ready to play, they can beat anybody on any night. And like you said, back with Kyle, he's worked for everything he's got, and he works his tail off. Along with guys like Brent Jameson when he was down coaching in Indiana, and it's cool to see guys that you grew up with and competed against have that success.
Right in our area specifically. In fact, in your conference, you got Chesaning having a great season, Durand having a great season, obviously you guys. And since you're on as our guest, let's talk about your team a little bit. Tell us about some of the key players and the style you play this year, Josh.
Yeah, we kind of had to make going into the summer, we were a different team than we were now. We lost one of probably our best returner, stat-wise. He transferred down to Orchard Lake St. Mary's to focus on football. Yep. And so we kind of went through a little bit of a period where we had to kind of find ourselves, and everybody had to find the role, because we expected to have, this guy
right.
Averaging, anywhere from 15 to 18 and 10 rebounds a game. So we've had to have guys kind of figure out their role kind of through the way, the seasons went, and losing 6 practices to start the season because of the way MHSA kind of pushed the season back. I really felt hurt us, because we really do a lot of install during that time, especially defensively. So, once we've kind of found our way per se, we started to play better, and guys started to accept the roles. We've got a couple really, really good senior leaders in Clay Wittenberg and Logan Thompson. Both have been 3-year players for us. Both are all conference last year. Clay's really stepped his game up. He's averaging just over 18 a game and averaging about 8 rebounds, and is just a great athlete. He's a great athlete on the football field. He's also a great golfer for us in our golf program. Logan does a great job as a guard for us, making shots and kind of being steady Eddie when we need him to. And our third senior leader, Braxton Stenger, is kind of the leader by example that doesn't get the credit all the time. Yeah. He's averaging like 6 assists, and he's averaging 5 or 6 points and 4 or 5 steals, and 4 or 5 rebounds. So he's the guy that does it all for us. So we really do a lot of leaning on those 3. And then some of our other guys have done a good job of stepping in when we need them to. Bo Price had a huge game in our win against Chesaning. Gunnar McCreary's been huge for us in different games. And, we've had some guys step up when we've needed them to, in some of those marquee games. But like you said, Ted, it doesn't get any easier for us playing in the league with a couple road games against Chesaning and Durand coming up. Both those teams are outstanding and have outstanding players, and their coaching is very good. So, we're just grateful for any opportunity we get, and very, grateful for every win we get. We never take winning for granted. And, it's tough because the basketball is pretty good in the area. So,
yeah, that's cool to see for sure. And I mean, you guys are just preparing each other for the postseason, right? That's what you're doing. I'll be curious to see how some of these districts shake out for sure.
Well, it's like we got moved down to D3, because of enrollment sizes, we're, down to about 400 kids now. And I look at the district that we've been in, and it's like, holy smokes. We got the number 2 team in D3 in Langsburg in there, but I look at the the one in Chesaning, and it's like, okay, you got to deal with Chesaning, you got to deal with Hamity, who's
Yeah.
extremely good again,
Right.
and then you got to deal with Corona, who's extremely good. So
Yeah.
I don't know if it's it's kind of half dozen one way, whatever the
Right.
other. It's so you hope to be playing your best basketball that time of the year, anyways. So either way you slice it, it's going to be a challenge for us.
Look at Ted down there licking his chops because he's going to be calling some of those games on the radio. He can't wait for it.
Yeah,
I wanted
look,
to
I
ask
got-
you something. So I mentioned
Got my list.
got your list right there. So you brought up Coach Fattel, who I played for, Jared's dad at Corona, 20 years ago now. I dug up one of our scouting reports. Look at this thing. Every game we would get something like this. Full box score, full write-up. This is Ovid-Elsie right here. Like I said, you graduated a year ahead of me, so this is my senior year.
What's it got to say about my brother?
Your brother,
So I can
Jason
use it
Latz.
against
It's the first one. I was going to ask you, how accurate is this write-up of your brother, Jason?
See.
Good shooter, can hit the 3-ball, has 10 at the time, has been in double figures every game this year, does not look to take the ball all the way to the basket when he penetrates. He likes to pull up for the jumper. He will pull up for the jumper in transition as well, chase him down and get a hand on it from behind. Is that fairly accurate?
Yeah, Coach Fattel knew his stuff, man. That's pretty accurate of him.
Yeah, I was going to say,
accurate.
so as a coach, I mean, as much as you could see me holding up in front of the camera, I mean, do you still, is that scouting reports in a binder? Is that still a thing nowadays?
Shoot,
do you
man,
still go in that, or like what, can you appreciate
I mean,
that kind of detail?
we get more bullet points. So, the bullet points of the guys that we need to worry about, the danger guys, and, a couple of the main things the other team's going to do. Early in my career, I was like that. I was very detailed with scouting reports. We go over other teams' actions over and over in practice. And,
Yep.
the older I've gotten, it's like just keeping it simple, more simple for them. Just two or three things that about each guy. I don't know if that's my philosophy that's changed over time, or attention spans, sometimes go. But part of that, I think, then compared to now also, is when you scouted or you watched, you prepared to play, you had to sit together with a VCR,
right,
and watch film. And now with everything online, it's just throw the film up on Huddle. You make your comments in, and you can mark it up,
Right.
and have it's all broken down for you, and the guys can watch it. So I don't know if that's why part of the prep work is not as detailed for us,
right.
and there's success every way. Some guys, some teams we play, we're going to roll the ball out, play zone, and they're going to run us, one or two sets. And other teams, you got to spend more time preparing for. Like we're going to play Langsburg tomorrow, and Langsburg is very much motion, type of offense. So we just kind of talk about some of the actions and what some of their best players are going to do, what we're going to see on defense, and go from there, I guess. But shoot, man, he had that down. That is Jason for sure.
One last question for me, Coach. Like I said earlier, I mean, you can basically, set your clock to Ovid-Elsie winning 15 games or more under you. 12 years is a long time to be doing it. What keeps you doing it, and how long do you think you will keep coaching? Because, if you keep going, we talk about Clint Galvis all the time, all the wins he has. You keep going at this pace, you're still a young guy. Who knows how many wins you can amass?
Shoot. I tell you what, man, I appreciate all the kind words, Jared. We've had really good players,
right?
Especially the last 6-7 years that have really worked hard. As far as how much longer I'm going to do it, I don't know. To be honest with you, it's been it's like the 15 wins a year. That's more stressful than having to worry about trying to do that than it is just competing. So
right.
I couldn't tell you. I guess the kids are why I still do it. It really is. I love the relationship with the kids. They're like sons to me, and then when they graduate, they're kind of like brothers to me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really why. The only reason I do it is for them. I've got a couple young ones coming up, a 6th grader and a 4th grader, and I kind of think about sometimes the sacrifices that I'm making in not being able to help their teams or help them coach.
Right. Yeah.
They're coaches on their teams where, and I guess it goes right back to the kids. It's just these kids that, that I've taught and watched grow up through the program, and continuing to do it for them. Yeah, that's really why I do it, and the only reason we do it. So as far as time, like I said, it's a year by year thing right now.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I'll let you go on this. I have one last question. You're a teacher over there. Are you in the middle school now, Josh?
Yeah, I teach 7th grade. Yep.
That's what I thought. Now that's got to be cool. You're teaching these youngsters in 7th grade level. You can tell when you see them in phys ed or when you see them out shooting hoops, who you're going to be eyeballing in the future. That's got to be really an advantage, I think, being in the school system, especially a great school system like Ovid-Elsie, being able to help mentor these younger kids and then getting a handle on what's going on in the hallways, because you hear all the stuff that's happening out there. You find that to be a big advantage being a teacher in the school system that you're a coach in?
100%. 100%. I don't think there's nothing like it, because you have that connection, right from the start with these kids, especially like you said in 7th grade, because I can get them then. And then kind of they start to understand and see, how what the things I'm going to allow, I guess, per se, and expectations of being a person rather than a basketball player. I mean, that's more about what it is anyways. And we talk to our guys about it all the time. The basketball is just a game. Win or lose, the sun's coming up tomorrow. And what kind of person are you going to be? And what kind of father are you going to be someday? What kind of husband are you going to be? What kind of brother are you? What kind of son are you and grandson? So, and I always say this, I teach 7th grade world history, which to a lot of kids doesn't mean anything. Right. And they're never going to use it. But I tell every kid that comes into my classroom that, we expect you to be a better person walking out of here at the end of the year, whether you learn anything about world history or not. We want you to learn characteristics that are going to make you a good person, to be able to be successful someday in society, forget the sports. Right. Just to be a good person. And I think maybe that and that mentality, I think, helps build that trust and that confidence in the kids, and that they know that we're there for them to do anything they need, and it doesn't matter what part of life it is. And I think then they take that and they work harder a little bit in the other parts of where you're involved with them, which, in my case is in basketball. So yeah, I mean, just building that relationship with those kids is there's nothing like it. You guys know, all three of you guys know, because you've all three played for tremendous coaches and had tremendous successes in life, that it's like, that means more to me than anything, getting a text from players that maybe you didn't see eye to eye with all the time about how much they appreciate you later in life. I mean, that means more to me than anything else. Any win, any championship, anything is building that with those guys and seeing those guys succeed at, now in life as dads and things like that. So
perfect way to end it right there, Josh. Well spoken. Really enjoyed this conversation with you. As we mentioned, Langsburg on the schedule tomorrow night, Tuesday night. Number 2 Langsburg Wolfpack, led by the Woodruff brothers. We'll be there on the castle. I'm looking forward to it. I know that gym is gonna be smoking, man. It's gonna be a fun atmosphere.
It's kind of it's a little disappointing, because the girls are playing over there, and we have them at our place, so the crowds will be split.
Oh,
that's a bummer.
But I still think it should be a good crowd. We played Langsburg back when I was coming up through, but then we haven't played them in a while, and it's a shame we haven't, because they're 10 miles away. So
next door neighbor.
It's pretty cool to be able to get back and play the neighbors like that, and hopefully we can come out and compete, especially like I said, after 2 days of no prep. So we'll see.
We're taking up your time before we let you go. I mean, do you think there could be a new rivalry forming now that you guys are in Division III with Lanesburg?
There very possibly could be. Absolutely. Absolutely. I had this idea too, like Meridian Road kind of brings you through both. I think we need to have like a Meridian Road trophy, a traveling
there
trophy
you go.
or something. Same thing in football. I think we should play them in football and have something like that. You get great crowds and great gates, and everybody knows everybody from each community. Yep. So just some ideas.
Oh, trust me.
But I'm just a coach.
Podcast. Meridian Road Trophy.
Yeah, we talk about it all the time. The neighboring schools playing each other and how much we used to love it back in the day. And we've thrown around some ideas for trophies. So I think you might be onto something.
Just a thought, but I don't make the big bucks to make that choice.
Well, we obviously don't either. You can tell. No, it was great catching up with you again, Josh. I'll see you tomorrow night. And again, best of luck the rest of the season and down the road. All right.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yep, thanks, Josh.
Capital Sports Fieldhouse is the home of hit and pitch and a whole lot more. The 10,000 square foot turf field can be used for all indoor sports training, including football, baseball, basketball, softball, soccer, and many other activities. Hit and Pitch has 7 indoor batting cages with full pitching tunnel and the state-of-the-art Hit Tracks training system utilized by MLB organizations. Located in the old Capitol Bowl J.C. Penney block on South Washington in Owosso, Michigan. For more details, call Capital Sports and Hit and Pitch at 989-472-4624 or online at capitalsportsfh.com. All right, fellas, that's another great high school interview, and it's ironic that we had Daniel Morrow of Langsburg recently and now Josh Latz of Ovid-Elsie, and they're going at it. Before we go to our next topic, just the prep spotlight, some of the key games we just had. Ovid-Elsie's, he talked about it, Logan Thompson put up 25 in their win over Mount Morris. Langsburg stayed undefeated. They're number 2 in Division III. They're 12-0 now. Xander Woodruff, we've talked about him before, 34 in their win over Saranac. So Tuesday night, January 30th, right on Z92.5 The Castle, you can catch Ovid-Elsie at Langsburg. Also, our alma mater, the Corunna Cavaliers, they had a big win over Owosso, 81-48. 10-2 now for the Cavs. Brevin Belor was unconscious, guys. 35, 9 triples, all of them from the corner. I mean, this kid is a deadly shooter. And I don't know if you caught any of the broadcast. Charlie Bell, actually, he'd been working with Charlie Bell, former Spartan, former NBA player, on 3-point shooting for him. Man, what a game!
He can shoot it. It's I love the hype around this Shiawassee County hoops season, man. I mean, Latz talked about it a little bit. I mean, how awesome would it be if we maybe had a, our holiday tournament like what they had this year at Corunna, the Shiawassee Shootout? I mean, let's get Ovid-Elsie in that thing. I mean, Ovid-Elsie versus Corunna you should mark your calendar.
Every year.
That should be every year. That's a great matchup. 2 good programs. It's cool to see, man. And it was cool getting to talk to him, and we wish him the best of luck. I mean, it's going to be a great one tomorrow, Ted. I'm jealous of you being able to be there and see it in person.
That'll be a good one. It's a shame though, like you said, the girls. And the boys I
don't understand that. That's the first time I've ever heard of that.
That's Tuesday nights, that's what they've been doing. The girls play at the other school, and on Friday nights, the girls varsity plays first, so they're all together.
Yeah, that's interesting. That kind of splits the crowd up a little bit. So that's kind of a shame. It'll still be electric, like you said. I'm curious. He mentioned both his and then Corunna's districts. Those are a couple of juggernaut districts. I mean, you guys are more plugged in than I am, obviously now, but just listing those teams, it's like those are going to be some good games right there.
Yeah. That Division III is Bath, Byron, okay, but then Langsburg, New Lothrop, Ovid-Elsie, and Perry. I mean, that's a solid district right there at the New Lothrop gym, and then the Chesaning one, as he mentioned, Flint Hamady, and then you got Flint Hamady's got to be the favorite. I'm sure they'll be seeded number 1. But then you got Corunna and Chesaning both having great years, and they got Mount Morris and Owosso maybe not so good, but still another solid district. Just depends how the draw comes about.
I mean, Hamady. I mean, you could probably set your watch to them being at the Breslin Center, at the end of the year. And I mean, Lanesburg. I mean, we talked about it. The coach wouldn't really, give us much on it, but a potential undefeated season. I mean, it's going to be tested tomorrow night, that's for sure.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, it's going to be a really fun one. And I really do think, I mean, if they're in Class C now, which it seems like Ovid-Elsie will be for the foreseeable future, I mean, them versus Lanesburg, and that's going to be a great district matchup every year.
Amen. And, I should mention this too. Owosso girls beat Corunna for the first time in a decade as freshman guard Danica Dwyer had 16 in their win over the Cavaliers. The real bummer in that game, though, for Corunna, their senior, Sydney Gillette, suffered her 3rd ACL injury. She's done for the year for her career at Corunna. And, man, that's the first time I think I've ever heard of an athlete at the high school level in our area, 3 ACL tears.
That's a lot. I heard one friend of the podcast, Craig, was on the call with you for that game, and I saw he posted the open, so they had her start, and then they subbed her out. That's a cool gesture, but she's the one we've been talking about. She committed to Michigan for rowing.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
So I wonder how that's going to work out. Hopefully she's going to be able to rehab and still get to do that.
Yeah, amen. I don't know, but that was very sad to see. But it was a classy move too, though.
Yeah.
Send her out there and start. Even in fact, Craig had told me, yeah, she's out with a torn ACL, and then all of a sudden we see her in uniform. And I guess I didn't get my facts straight enough before the game because they stopped it right away, and I figured it out pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But again, good stuff here. By the way, Chesaning picked up a win over Montrose. And Friday night, this coming Friday, it'll be New Lothrop at Chesaning. My first chance to see both those teams live this season. So it's heating up, fellas. It is heating up here in the gyms on the radio. So it's going to be a good February heading into March. Looking forward to it.
It seems like, yeah, once that calendar, whether it's college basketball or high school, once it turns to February, it's like it really starts to heat up, like you said.
Well, we'll go from here and we'll go right to a little Tedertainment Tonight right after this. All right, Jared. Again, I took your advice. Didn't have to talk me into much, though, knowing it was HBO. But The Last of Us, I never played the game, but the first 2 episodes, I know I didn't see the third yet.
Oh, you're missing out, man.
First 2 episodes, outstanding. I'll probably watch episode 3 tomorrow. But
episode 3,
you were right.
People are going gaga over it on
Really?
social media. They love it. Matt, have you seen it yet?
Yep, just watched it today.
It's incredible. I mean, it's like a kind of a standalone episode with Nick Offerman from Parks and Rec fame. It's awesome. It is just an awesome episode. It'll make you cry. I mean, I've always loved the whole Doomsday Prepper thing. I used to watch that show.
Oh, yeah.
There's something awesome about having a sweet like Doomsday bunker, which he has, that I could watch for hours on end.
I know. I've seen people saying that they would love a spinoff. I don't want to spoil anything for you, Ted. They would love a spinoff of like this story from the 3rd episode. There's a lot of shock value.
Good.
Some people, again, don't want to spoil anything. Some people don't like the episode because of some stuff that goes on during the episode, because of different reasons. Jared laid it out though. I didn't want to turn it off. I mean, it was one of those, you almost wanted it to be a full like movie. So it was, I mean, Offerman obviously is great. One of the other characters that came in
right here. His name is Frank Murray Bartlett.
Yep.
Oh, you know who he is,
fantastic.
don't you? He was in White Lotus.
Okay.
Oh, that is who that is.
Yes, and he was also in another one I watched called.
I can't believe I didn't connect the dots on that.
Yeah,
that is who that is.
Yeah, this show is doing a great job. I love, again, obviously because I played the game, so it's cool to remember scenes from the game or whatever. I just love how they are hopping around from, I guess maybe pre-pandemic to like the current state. I just think kind of like what you said, Jared, the Doomsday stuff with like that movie I Am Legend with Will Smith, I just think it's so cool to see like the city all grown over. I don't know what it is. I just think that's
wild.
It's a wild thought to think about if it ever actually happened like that. So with this Last of Us show, seeing Boston all grown over, seeing how they navigate through. I love the zombies. I'm not like a huge zombie movie fan, but these ones are just so cool. I don't know, intense. I don't know what the realistic word is.
I think that's maybe what's creepy. It's actually like it's the most realistic idea for a zombie invasion yet. Not saying it's realistic, but of all of them that we've had, this is probably the most realistic.
Well, what's scary about,
and that not a spoiler for people who haven't, I mean, it's been out now for a little bit, but this doesn't spoil anything, but how the whole series starts off with the doctor in like the 60s.
That was
describing the difference between a virus and a fungus. I mean, you're sitting there watching it going like, oh man. You're like watching it like
I almost texted you guys. I was 10 minutes in. I almost texted you and go, wow, this is unreal. That was a great start. It really was. And you're talking about zombies. Zombies have come a long way in movies. I mean, from Night of the Living Dead, to Dawn of the Dead, because in those days, zombies all got together and if they trapped you, you were done for, but they were slow. These zombies are not slow.
No. That is hilarious. Yeah, that's like The Walking Dead. The zombies were. It's like, how do you even die in this world?
Right.
Yeah, they're just
that's exactly what you thought.
Right.
Yeah.
No, it's a great show. I mean, I think we can tell all three of us would highly recommend anyone who hasn't gotten into it. If you have HBO, if you don't, get that free trial and try and knock it out because it's the acting is great and it's HBO. Ted can't rave enough about anything on HBO, so it's super good.
You
They
know what
do
I'm
it
not
upright.
ashamed to admit either is like Pedro Pascal. I mean, dude, he's a handsome guy, very handsome fella.
He is.
I mean, from Ted, that you'll appreciate this. He's kind of like the new hot thing on social media. People have a big crush on him. So
Okay.
He's the new Rip from Yellowstone.
yeah, he's ripped from Yellowstone.
Or Spencer from 1923.
Yeah, right.
I can agree with that one.
So I just had to throw that out there, man. I mean, because there's a scene at the end where he's like all cleaned up or whatever.
Right.
And it's just like, wow, he's a good looking dude. There's a reason they pay him millions to make these shows.
Amen. Yeah. Amen. I only got one other thing I want to add to this segment. It's a network show, ABC. You know, I for late night TV hosts, there's some good ones out there with Colbert and Jimmy Fallon, but my guy's Jimmy Kimmel, and he just had his 20th anniversary show. And his first 3 guests 20 years ago were Snoop Dogg, George Clooney, and Coldplay. And he had all 3 of them back.
That's cool.
It was awesome. If you get a chance to watch the anniversary show, it was really well done with a lot of old clips back 20 years ago. It was great.
That is cool. I don't watch them anymore. I don't know why. I'm just watching different stuff, I guess. I don't watch those late night shows anymore, but I've always liked them. I remember, growing up trying to stay up late to watch Letterman or, trying to stay up to watch Leno. And then when Jimmy Fallon got his, I used to like Conan O'Brien a lot. I would watch Conan O'Brien almost every night. But then when Jimmy Fallon got his, I would try and watch that because he always had great guests and stuff too. I really like late night shows. I don't know why. I just don't watch them anymore. So that is cool. I mean, I see clips, on Twitter, whatever. But
I always loved watching that show. Like after the NBA Finals on ABC, they would have it come right on afterward. I always loved it. Yeah, it's a great show. It's around 20 years.
Yep. He always does the half-hour pregame too for NBA Finals. That's really good.
Who's his dude? Who's his sidekick?
Guillermo.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's my man. He's the one I like. Is anything else on Tedertainment Tonight you guys got? I know.
I don't think so. Just waiting for Yellowstone. I know Yellowstone's not coming back until the summer, but 1923 I think
that's coming back in February.
So kind of a standstill on those. But
and Tulsa King, don't forget, check out Tulsa King.
Two final questions. Do you have a like Yellowstone shirt, either of you guys?
Honestly, I've seen a couple kind of cool ones, and I'm like, I can't pull the trigger because I'm not that big of a fanboy where I'm going to wear a Yellowstone. But I've seen a couple that I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool shirt.
I saw one in reference to the train station that I almost pulled the trigger on.
Yeah.
And then Ted, one last one because we were talking about night shows. Are you still on SNL? Have you given up on that show yet?
Nah, I'm going to stick with it till it's done. I mean, it has its
every
moments.
week you watch it.
Every week. In fact, before I came downstairs to start this pod, I started watching this last week. They had Michael B. Jordan on as the host.
Yep. Wow. All right.
Yeah. I'm
Thank
still
you for
with
your service.
You're welcome.
I saw a clip. They did a Jake from State Farm skit.
Uh-huh.
Have you gotten
I haven't seen that yet? No.
It was pretty good. But that's I definitely do not watch it as much as you. But like every once in a while, you'll see a skit shared that you're like, all right, that was really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. They don't have as many as they should, but not like in the heyday. But I'm still sticking with it. I like to see who the guest is, and I check out the musical guest too. And the weekend update. It's usually always very topical and very funny. So I'm an SNL guy.
Love it.
All right, guys, let's get out of here. I just want to.
I'll say real quick. This is a little Tedertainment before we sign off. Just final Rihanna halftime show at the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Ted, does that excite you? Jared, does that excite you? Because Rihanna's a little more like my era.
She's her second time, right? It's her second time, isn't it?
Maybe she was featured, but this is her first time headlining. Okay. I've been saying this for the last few years. They keep nailing these halftime shows. Yeah. They finally transitioned from Ted's crap to crap that people actually like listening to, man. And I couldn't be more thankful for it.
Yeah. Well,
I'll be curious to see what she does. If she does a lot of her older stuff, if she's got some new stuff, but
she put on a good show.
She's all right to look at too. So it'll be a good show.
I didn't mind the J-Lo show. That was perfectly fine to me.
J-Lo and Shakira.
Yeah.
Yeah, because she's like the closest to your generation, man.
Is that why? Maybe you're right.
I don't know. Are we prisoners of the moment? Last year's with Snoop Dogg and awesome. Dr. Dre and Eminem and 50 Cent. That's going to be tough to top.
Yeah, that was awesome.
All right, you guys are looking forward to the halftime show. I'm looking forward to the game. What can I tell you?
I'm
All
looking
right.
forward to the game, I guess. But
Let's get out of here. Want to thank our sponsors, Memorial Healthcare's Now Community Wellness Center and Skymint Cannabis. Skymint Cannabis, like I said, they have the big news. Somebody's winning marijuana for a year. Can't beat that. That announcement's going to be January 31st. That would be Tuesday this week. Also, we've talked about it before, over 15 locations throughout the state of Michigan. Check out the Skymint Reserve. If you're over 21, go online, see what it's all about, skymint.com. Make sure you sign up for the rewards program. Check out the coupon code 3.20 at the front of the store. That's across from Meyer. 20% off all Skymint products. Also, Memorial Healthcare's Now Community Wellness Center. Really awesome. They hit the 1,000 mark for members. All kinds of great stuff there. Cardio exercise area, the Sky Track. I use that every single day. The steam room, and a lot going on there. Check it out, memorialhealthcare.org. Also, our other great sponsors, they include AZEE Printing Solutions, Pro Real Estate and Auction, Rivals Taphouse and Grille, Capital Sports Fieldhouse, Nelson House Funeral Homes, and Success Group Mortgage and Servicing. I want to send a special thanks out to Josh Latz for hopping on board, talking a little Ovid-Elsie basketball. Big game of the week. We got a couple of them this week on Z92.5 Radio. Tuesday, January 31st. That's Ovid-Elsie at Langsburg. And Friday, February 3rd, New Lothrop at Chesaning. Going to be a good week on the radio. So that'll do it for us. Peace and love, everybody. Be kind. Thanks for listening.